and turned to Lily. He came up with an idea and forced a smile. It's still very hot outside. Why don't you and Lily get in the car and cool off? Then you can talk some sense into her. Inside, Dorothy smiled and said, Lily, look at how considerate Bradley is. He only wants what's best for you. That bum Kevin wouldn't think of doing something like this. Lily, let's head straight back to Grandma's. Why would you want to stay with Kevin anyway? After Dorothy said this, she handed her car keys to Bradley. Bradley grinned as he got into the driver's seat and locked the doors. What Dorothy and Lily didn't know was that Bradley had put child locks on the car door. They wouldn't be able to leave. Bradley, pull over. I want to go home to Kevin, Lily demanded. Can't do. I told you I would do whatever it takes to make you mine. And now that I have you, I'm not letting you go, Bradley threatened. Lily tried to get out of the car, but it was too late. She and her mother, Dorothy, were locked inside. The black car slowly drove away. Kevin, who had been watching from the window, saw everything. An hour later, Bradley parked outside of an ominous house and brought a rope over to tie both Dorothy and Lily up before bringing them inside. Help! Someone come quickly! Dorothy shouted, but to no avail as Bradley threw them in a dark back room. Hours later, Bradley returned to the room and nodded to both Lily and Dorothy, who were tied up on the ground and screaming for help. Bradley was drying his hair with a towel as he walked into the room. You really ought to save your strength. Even if you scream until you're hoarse, no one will hear you. Bradley, let us go this instant. You'll never get away with this. Dorothy was in a panic. She couldn't believe that the man she thought would make the perfect son-in-law would actually do something like this. Shut the hell up, Bradley yelled angrily. Then he grabbed Dorothy's hair and said, I'm ruined. After all of these years of hard work, I've got nothing left. Lily was completely stunned to hear this. What? She said. Didn't you buy the Dream Lover necklace for me? Even though Bradley had told her over the phone that it wasn't him, she thought he was lying so she wouldn't worry about him. After all, an authentic Dream Lover was really too expensive. Bradley laughed at her naivety. Ha, Lily, you really don't think I'd buy you a real Dream Lover, do you? You're not that special, Bradley added with a sneer. I was just toying with you. Bradley let go of Dorothy's hair and knelt down in front of Lily. He looked into her eyes. It was a cold, harsh look. Then he put his hand under her chin. What's wrong with you? Lily gasped. There was venom in his voice as Bradley complained to Lily. Don't pretend you're so innocent. How many men have you been hooking up with? Why else wouldn't you know who gave you the necklace? This made Lily furious. Bradley, what have you been smoking? I was sure the necklace couldn't have been from Kevin, so I had no idea who else would have given it to me. She really wanted to stand up and slap Bradley on the cheek, but she was still tied up. So Lily spat at him. Bradley's face turned bright red and his mouth twisted. He raised his hand like he was going to slap her. Dorothy tried to calm him down. In a stern voice, she asked him, Bradley, how can you even think of hitting Lily? Weren't you talking about marrying her? Just let us go. We can all pretend this never happened. Bradley turned and raised his hand like he was going to give Dorothy a slap. Do you think I'm a fool? Bradley sneered. I had tried to do this the right way, but Lily just had to reject my offer. So now I'm stuck with both of you. He slowly stood up and took out a cigarette. Bradley, how can you do this? Let us go. Do you hear me? Dorothy was so mad she was on the verge of tears. He took a long drag on a cigarette. How can you be so dense? I really don't know how Kevin puts up with you. Bradley flicked his cigarette ashes on Dorothy's face, making her wince. Then Bradley turned his back on Dorothy and stared at Lily with a deranged look on his face. He ran his hands through his hair as he sobbed. I had adored you for so long. Today I can finally get what I wanted. Suddenly, the door burst open with a violent kick. Bradley spun around, but when he saw that it was only Kevin standing at the door, he relaxed a bit. Lily was the first to react and shouted, Kevin, call the police. Kevin, save me, Dorothy added. Shut up or I'll shut your mouths for you, Bradley said as he glared at them. Kevin saw Lily with her hands tied and he became enraged. In spite of everything, Lily was his wife. Whatever problems they had in their relationship didn't matter now. This was a matter of life and death. Bradley, you'll never get away with this. Let Lily go. If you want revenge, take it out on me, Kevin said firmly. But Bradley wouldn't go for it. He taunted Kevin. What can a useless piece of crap like you do to someone like me? Then he added, I admit I was surprised to find out that you know Mitchell Cook and Adriana Wright, but so what? They can't help you now. Do you really think I came alone? Kevin asked. Right then, they heard sirens out in the street. Bradley's expression changed from anger to fear. He picked up a knife that was lying on the table and ran over to hide behind Lily and Dorothy. Kevin, you actually called the freaking police? Bradley growled. To deal with a piece of crap like you, you're damn right, Kevin said coldly. If you release Lily now, you might get a lighter sentence. Actually, Kevin had called the police as soon as he arrived in Bradley's neighborhood. The problem was he had never been to Bradley's place before. He had to go down the block and check the houses one by one. That's what took him so long to get there. Bradley waved the knife and shouted, No way, you're lying. As long as I have hostages, the police can't do a thing. Bradley, if you want a hostage, let them go and take me. Lily was floored when she heard Kevin say that. Her eyes filled with tears. But instead she said, Kevin, no, get out of here while you can. But Dorothy was okay with the idea. Lily, what are you saying? If he wants to be Bradley's hostage, let him. Why should we stay here? Then she shouted at Kevin, What are you still standing there for? Get over here and take our place. Bradley stared at Kevin while he figured out what to do. Meanwhile, the police outside had already told the Jones family what was happening. The officer in charge of the scene was a lieutenant named Emmett. She was wearing the typical Chicago police uniform, including the hat with the checkered band and the city flag patch, the one with the 4 stars. Grandma Jones showed up with the older members of the family, the ones who made most of the big decisions. Officer Emmett, how is the situation now? The Jones family had been sitting in the great room admiring the gifts that Cook and Adriana had given to Grandma. They were trying to recover from the horrible fight at the restaurant and hoped that maybe the day would get a little better. That's when they got a call from Officer Emmett. Grandma's party was definitely over for this year. Emmett answered directly in typical police style. There is a man named Kevin Williams currently speaking with the kidnapper, identified as one Bradley Smith. We will give you an update as soon as one is available, ma'am. Grandma Jones was completely overwhelmed by the situation. She pressed for more information. Officer Emmett, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Bradley is a fine young man. I can't believe he would do such a thing. Emmett kept an eye on the house while she replied. Whether you believe it or not, that's the situation. Suddenly, another officer ran up to Officer Emmett. In a very serious tone, he reported to her. Ma'am, the sniper in position on the roof across the street radioed in that Mr. Williams seems to be discussing something with the kidnapper. It appears that they are discussing a hostage exchange. Exchange? Yes, let them make an exchange, Grandma Jones blurted out. Emmett definitely didn't like this idea, and she shook her head as she considered their options. Seeing the police officer's hesitation, Grandma Jones spoke again. Officer Emmett, you might not know this, but even though our family isn't well known, we do have some influence in the city. Dorothy and Lily are very important to us, and this can't go on much longer. She continued. But Mr. Williams is different. He has been pretty useless to us for the past few years. If he can get Lily and Dorothy back, then let him do it. He can make himself useful for once in his life. Officer Emmett clearly thought that this was a terrible idea. She had dealt with countless families in her career, but she didn't understand what Grandma was thinking. No matter what she thought of Kevin, he was still a human life, and it was the police's duty to protect him. Meanwhile, in the house, Bradley was deep in thought. Kevin smiled slightly and asked, Bradley, what are you waiting for? I'm your only chance to get out of this. If you let Lily and Dorothy go now, the Jones family may forgive you. Don't risk losing everything and spending decades in prison. I know you don't really want to hurt Lily. Bradley didn't buy it. Shut up! How the hell do you know what's right for me? Kevin broke into a big grin. I know because I'm Lily's husband, not you. You want her, but you can't have her. When Lily heard Kevin say this, she broke into tears again. Of course, she knew what Kevin was thinking. He wanted to get Bradley so pissed off that he'd be willing to exchange hostages. A second later, Bradley pointed his knife at Kevin. You want to be a hero and save this damsel in distress? Okay, you get your wish. Put your hands over your head and slowly walk over here. Not so fast, Kevin shot back. I wasn't born yesterday. If I come over, what is there to keep you from changing your mind? He paused for a moment and said, We'll count to 3. When we get to 3, I'll walk over to you and you'll let Lily and her mom go. Bradley agreed. Okay, but no tricks. At the count of 3, Kevin slowly walked over. As he brushed past Lily, he whispered, Lily, don't be afraid. You're safe now. Don't wait for me. When Lily heard him, she trembled. As she walked towards the door, she turned her head and saw Bradley grab Kevin and put the knife to his neck. Kevin didn't resist at all. He just looked at Lily calmly. Dorothy grabbed Lily's wrist and pulled her out of the room. Lily, let's get out of here. When they got outside the house, their family quickly surrounded them and made sure they hadn't been harmed. Little Dorothy! Lily, are you all right? Grandma Jones rushed over and gave them a hug. Grandma, we're fine, Lily replied softly. Thank goodness, now let's go. It's too dangerous here. Grandma Jones turned around to head back to their car. But Grandma, Kevin is still inside, Lily shouted. When Dorothy heard her daughter say this, she couldn't believe her ears. But honey, we're out now. Why do you still care about that good-for-nothing? Grandma Jones kept walking. When she got to Officer Emmett, she said to her, We're ready to leave now. The seasoned officer looked at her in surprise. Isn't that person inside a member of your family? No, we have nothing to do with him, Dorothy replied coldly. Ignoring Lily's resistance, she pulled her daughter by the arm and left. Dorothy didn't care what would happen to Kevin. But what about Lily? Since Dorothy didn't close the door behind her when she walked out, Bradley and Kevin could see them walk to safety and leave Kevin behind. Inside the house, Bradley mocked his hostage. Ha! Well, Kevin, it looks like we can finally see just how much Lily's family really cares about you. We've never really been that close, Kevin answered calmly. To him, the most important thing was that Lily was safe now. Yeah, I'm sure you don't care what they think, Bradley said sarcastically. But Kevin didn't care what Bradley thought, or even what the Joneses thought. He decided to push things a little further and asked, Aren't you curious why Williams Media suddenly pulled its support? They even withdrew all the funds that were invested in your project. How did you know that? Bradley asked. Bradley had never told anyone that he was backed by Williams Media, and almost nobody knew that they'd pulled out. Even Dorothy and Lily only found out when he told them about it a little while ago. But how did Kevin, this nobody, know so much about his business? Kevin smirked and asked him, Did someone at Williams Media tell you that you'd offended someone? I'll bet you don't even know who it was. How the hell would you know? Bradley was pissed. The knife shook a little in his hand as he took this information in. Meanwhile, out in the street, a police officer suddenly ran up to Officer Emmett. The concern showed in his voice as he gave her the update. Ma'am, according to the observer's report, the hostage just said something that seems to have really upset the suspect. Are there any further details? What are they doing now? Emmett said. She was exhausted by the whole ordeal, especially trying to get cooperation from the Jones family. But she was trained to keep herself together and be patient. Just as she was about to give the order for the sniper to take a shot as soon as he had a clear line of sight on the kidnapper, another officer ran up to her. With a puzzled look on his face, he reported, Ma'am, for some unknown reason, the kidnapper suddenly knelt down in front of the hostage. What did you say? Officer Emmett was obviously shocked at this development. She quickly walked to the vantage point across the street from the house and took a pair of binoculars from one of the SWAT team members. She definitely saw Bradley kneeling in front of Kevin. Then Bradley threw his knife on the floor. What the hell is going on? Emmett couldn't help but ask. Nobody could have predicted this outcome. It was the first time that any of them had ever seen a kidnapper kneel in front of their hostage. Of course, none of them could possibly know that Kevin had just revealed his true identity to Bradley. At first, Bradley didn't believe it. He thought that Kevin was just a bum. How could he be related to the family that owned Williams Media? But when Kevin took out his phone and showed Bradley his bank balance, he believed him. Bradley was overwhelmed. It was like his whole world had turned upside down. He would never have believed that the person Williams Media said he had offended was Kevin, the most useless person he knew, or so he thought. Sobbing uncontrollably, Bradley hugged Kevin's leg and said, "Please, sir, I beg you to let me go. This was all my fault." Kevin thought for a moment. "Bradley, as long as you sincerely admit your mistake, I can let you go. But don't forget that you've broken the law. Even if I forgive you, all those police out in the street won't be so generous." "That's fine with me, Mr. Williams. After all, nobody really got hurt," Bradley blubbered. To him, Kevin was much more terrifying than the police waiting for him outside. As long as Kevin was serious about letting him go, then maybe he could return to his former life after he got out of prison. At least he'd have a chance. Kevin said firmly, "All right, you can go outside and surrender. After you get out of prison, if I never see your face again, then I won't press charges." What did Kevin care what happened to Bradley now? Then Kevin pushed him aside and walked out of the front door. With a curious expression on her face, Emmett walked up to Kevin and asked, "Are you hurt, sir?" "Thank you for your concern. I'm fine." Kevin shrugged his shoulders. "If there's nothing more, I think I'd like to leave." Emmett would have liked nothing better after this strange event, but there was always paperwork to do. "I'd like you to go back to the station with us first to make a statement. Do you have time right now?" "I'm sorry," he replied, "but I still have some things to do, so it isn't convenient for me at the moment." "All right then. Please give me your phone number. I'll contact you if we need any further information for this case." As Emmett said this, she took out her phone and opened her contact list. Just as Emmett was about to say something else, Bradley was brought out of his house by a group of officers in bulletproof vests. He was in handcuffs and tried his best to avoid having his face filmed by the news crews that had set up in his neighbor's yard. Kevin turned around and walked away. He had already made up his mind to never go back to the Jones family. He would buy a place closer to his office. Suddenly, a line of limousines pulled up along the curb. Cook quickly got out of the lead car and gave Kevin a warm handshake and a pat on the shoulder. "Kevin, I've been looking for you for hours. Are you all right?" "Let's get out of here and I'll tell you all about it," Kevin said as he followed Cook to his limo. Emmett watched all of this and took a mental note. Of course she knew what kind of person Mitchell Cook was. Even the chief of police had to be polite to him. But Cook practically gave Kevin a hug. Just who is this Kevin Williams anyway? Emmett wondered. A little while later, Cook was in his office at the Whistler Hotel. Drake was standing contritely in front of Kevin. You could see beads of sweat starting to form on his forehead. Cook spoke first. "I hope you can forgive me, Mr. Williams. It's my fault that Drake offended you." Then he walked over to Drake and gave him a patronizing pat on the cheek. "What do you have to say for yourself, Drake?" "I had no idea who you were, Mr. Williams, but I do now. Please let me go. I'll do anything you want to make it up to you." Drake was actually trembling with fear. Kevin thought for a moment and then realized that Drake could be of some use to him. "Sure, I'll let you go, but I'll just ask for one thing in return. You are going to keep an eye on Jason Jones for me from now on." "Thank you, sir." Drake was grateful, but Kevin didn't say anything more to him. He didn't even bother to look at him. Then Kevin looked at Cook and said, "Thanks for setting up this little get-together. I have something to take care of, so I can't hang around. Give me a call so we can finish that lunch that got interrupted." A couple of days later, Kevin went to a real estate agent down by the Loop in downtown Chicago. With his sleeve, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. It was a hot day, and he couldn't feel any breeze from the lake to help cool him off. "Damn, took me 2 hours to get here," Kevin muttered to himself as he walked into the reception area. "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" A staff member asked as she walked up to greet him. Kevin scratched his chin and said hesitantly, I'm looking for a condo." "I'm sorry, but we're on a break right now. The listings are over here in this corner. Feel free to take a look." As usual, Kevin had dressed down, so he didn't look like he could afford much of anything. They sized him up and decided not to waste any time with him. After all, the lowest price condo they had available was a studio for about $300,000. There's no way this guy could afford even that. On a break, Kevin thought to himself, then why even let him in the door? The agent repeated, "I'm sorry, sir. We're really on a break right now. Our lowest offering is $300,000. If there's nothing else we can do for you, please show yourself out." She really wasn't interested in helping him at all, was she? The agent had already made up her mind that Kevin was probably working on the construction site down the street. He just came in to look around and enjoy the air conditioning. At least that's what she assumed. At that moment, 2 people walked up. Kevin was startled to see them and it showed on his face. "Kevin, what are you doing here?" Lily asked. She sounded a little embarrassed. Kevin didn't answer her question. He just looked at the man standing next to her. "What's this?" Kevin thought to himself. "I've only been gone for 2 days and you can't wait to start looking for a new husband?" The man with Lily suddenly blurted out, "Lily, what did you just say? This is Kevin? That useless ex-husband of yours?" This was Grant Butcher, the perfect son-in-law Dorothy had just found for Lily. When the real estate agent saw Garrett, she immediately walked up to him with a flattering smile. "Why, Mr. Butcher, what brings you in today?" The enthusiasm she showed was the exact opposite of the indifference and impatience she had just shown when speaking to Kevin.
I just took my fiancée to take a look at the home you recommended. Please go back to what you were doing. We'll just browse some more listings, Garrett said with a smile. The agent thanked him and smiled. Then she turned around and said to Kevin, "Why are you still here? Please leave or I'll ask security to show you out." But Kevin didn't pay any attention to her. He just kept staring at Lily. "Kevin, please understand, it's my mother." As Lily's voice trailed off, she turned her head away. "Oh, now I understand." Kevin was relieved to find out that this was Dorothy's idea, not Lily's. Then Garrett turned to speak to the agent. "How can you let someone like this in here? He's smelling up the place." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Butcher. I already asked him to leave, but he just won't listen to me." The agent was getting more and more irritated at Kevin. Because of him, she had just been scolded by her manager. Just as she was about to call the security guards to make Kevin leave, Garrett reached out to stop her. Then Garrett had a thought. He could use Kevin to show Lily how successful he was. That was sure to raise him up a notch or two in her eyes. "You're Kevin Williams, aren't you? Aunt Dorothy told me about your situation. You and Lily were married for about 3 years, weren't you?" Garrett didn't care if he pushed some of Kevin's buttons. He wanted to look assertive. "What business is it of yours? She's still my wife," Kevin answered. He was pretty ticked off at this nonsense. "You've really got some nerve," Garrett shot back. "Aunt Dorothy told me that she would let Lily divorce you as soon as possible. So from now on, please don't interfere in her life. I'll take good care of her." Kevin shook his head. What the heck was this? He and Lily hadn't even gotten a divorce yet. "What did he say to you?" Garrett turned around and asked the agent. "He said he wanted to buy a condo," she answered. Then she gave Kevin a sour look. "Buy a condo?" Garrett laughed. "I hate to tell you this, but we sell high-end real estate here. Do you think you'd even qualify for a mortgage?" "Well, I don't think that's really up to you," Kevin retorted. "Are you in charge here?" "Yes," Garrett said as he straightened his tie. "I'm the manager." "That's nice." Kevin took a good look at Garrett and pulled his phone out of his pocket to make a call. Just then, Rachel suddenly walked up to them. "Why, Lily, what are you doing here?" "Rachel, what a coincidence." However, Lily was in a pretty bad mood and she wasn't up for any small talk, even with Rachel. "I came here." Rachel didn't even finish what she was saying when she saw Kevin making a call on his phone. Her expression immediately changed. "Kevin, how you doing, boss?" Kevin gave Rachel a slight nod and turned his back on the group to continue his call. "Lily, who's this?" Garrett asked. "This is my best friend, Rachel," Lily replied faintly. Rachel added as she smiled and held onto Lily's arm. "We're like sisters." Garrett seemed to understand now. "So you're Lily's sister. I'm the manager. You're here to tour the property, right?" Garrett smiled and reached out to shake her hand. "I'm Lily's boyfriend. Aunt Dorothy introduced us to each other. Since we'll be married soon, I guess I'll be your brother-in-law from now on. Take a look around. There's a place here that you like. I can give you a family discount." Garrett made sure that he looked over at Kevin proudly, like he was saying, "See, you don't stand a chance against me." He wasn't ready for Rachel's response, though. She shouted at him, "Who do you think you are? You don't deserve someone as nice as Lily, and my only brother-in-law is Kevin. Who the hell are you?" In shock over her best friend's sudden shift, Lily wondered what had changed Rachel's opinion of Kevin. When Rachel finished speaking, she looked over at Kevin and saw that he had just finished his call. Garrett objected to Rachel's put-downs and snapped back at her. "What do you know? Listen, I'm Lily's new boyfriend and Aunt Dorothy wants us to get married. So what do you say to that?" "Do you think you deserve her?" Rachel turned and put her hand on Lily's arm. "Lily, how can you even be with a schmuck like this?" Rachel felt helpless. She never expected Lily to actually abandon Kevin. Then she thought to herself, maybe she still doesn't know who Kevin really is. Lily looked directly at Kevin and narrowed her eyes. "My mother arranged it all." She still couldn't say no to her family. Hearing this, Rachel instantly understood and shook her head helplessly. Garrett didn't like Rachel's reaction at all. "Lily, your friend seems to have already made up her mind about me. What have I done wrong?" By then, Kevin had finished his call and walked back over to them. He stared intently at Garrett. But before Kevin could say anything, Garrett spoke again. "What are you still standing here for? This isn't a grocery store. Not everyone can just walk in here off the street." "Well, what if I want to buy one of your properties?" Kevin asked nonchalantly. "With what?" Garrett asked. "Did Lily give you some of her money?" Kevin almost laughed out loud when he heard that. Why would he ask Lily for money? Lily interrupted them and spoke up to Garrett. "You have no idea what you're talking about. No, Kevin didn't ask me for any money." Kevin snickered a little and said, "I don't really like you, Garrett, but your company does have some good properties. You know, I think I'll buy the best one of your listings," Kevin continued. "Since you're the manager here, you can probably answer this. Which one is the best?" "Wow, Aunt Dorothy said you're worthless, but you sure are good at bragging," Garrett said. He walked to a model on a table by the front window. Pointing at the beautiful tower, he said, "This is the Corwin Tower. You've probably seen it going up a few blocks from here. The penthouse is available for anyone who can afford the price tag, $8 million. Garrett turned around and gave Kevin a pretentious look and asked him, "Can you afford it?" Kevin saw that Rachel was about to say something and he put his finger to his lips to ask her to be quiet. "That's what I thought," Garrett said. "This would be a good time for you to leave." Kevin didn't say anything. He just smiled. "Who said I can't afford it?" he replied. "Didn't you hear what I said? The penthouse costs $8 million, Garrett said in a very snotty tone. Kevin ignored him. He just took out a black card from his wallet and looked at the rude agent who had greeted him when he walked in. Then he walked over and handed it to a different agent, the one who was standing near the reception desk. "Wait." Garrett stopped her as she was about to go into the back room and swipe the card. "Isn't this your first day at work? That's not the proper procedure." That's when the agent realized that Kevin's card didn't even have a name on it. I guess the only way to find out if my card is good is to swipe it, Kevin said confidently. Just then, Garrett's phone rang. When he saw the caller ID, he quickly stepped away and answered the call. Kevin spoke